Well, here we go again. Since I'm overglazing Bloodborne in my previous video, I decided to make a ranked video, and I did gear myself up for the comments, guys, because I know a lot of you guys and Soulspawn fans, which I love, just loves their boss ranked videos. And I might get butchered for it. I'm also making this video just to have an excuse to play this masterpiece of a game even more. I hope you had a great morning, afternoon, or evening, you who's watching right now, and thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, please. I really love Bloodborne's boss list, and his roster is really fascinating for me. This list is my opinion and thoughts on Bloodborne's bosses, and you might have a different one. We all had our own experiences with these boss encounters, so with that, the opinions might be different. I might be biased about Bloodborne solely because it was my very first FromSoft game, so in this video I'm going to rank my list of bosses in Bloodborne. Number 22, Mikolash. You guys knew this was coming, you knew it. Mikolash, host of the Nightmare, is almost a glorified tag game. Chase me boss. I don't see him as a complete boss fight, he is more like an obstacle to get through, you know. His whole encounter is insanely different from the other boss fights in the game. Before fighting him, you have to chase this maniac shit around until he gets trapped in a room where he needs to defend himself. When it comes to his moveset, it literally does not get any more basic than this. In his first phase, he has only one attack. Only one, yes. If he hits you with it, though, it does pretty good damage. But just leave yourself with stamina and you will be good. Make sure you have a lot of stamina. You can dodge him pretty easily. Phase 2 is easily my biggest problem with the fight itself. In this phase 2, he has a one-shot move that instantly kills you. And then you need to do all the chasing all over again. Admittedly, as long as you make sure you stay relatively close to him and smack his ass constantly, then you'll be good. Just be up in his face all the time. The insta-kill in this final phase just feels so bad, guys. And that is why he is on the lowest list for me. He's crap, he's meh, and he's irritating. Although I will give credit where credit is due. Mikolash's voice acting is very memorable and really good. Music is also really mint in this so-called boss fight for me. Number 21, The One Reborn. Let me start to mentioning the positives first. Its visual design is really gross as hell and beautiful at the same time. And the opening cutscene is really memorable. The music is admittedly good, and the super loud blood explosion when you defeat it was weirdly funny for me somehow. I understand what they were going for with the movesets and everything with this boss, but the One Reborn can be ineffective at defending itself. It compensates for this by using things such as the raining body parts, the AoE explosion, the various limbs, and the floor vomit attack. But the issue here for me was that most of the methods don't make fun gameplay for me. And honestly guys, this boss was way too easy for me in some ways, and along with that a bit annoying, after the previous bosses that I have encountered in the game. Number 20. Witches of Hemwick. The witches aren't nearly as annoying as the One Reborn and Mikolash. I just think, guys, they're the most boring boss fight in the game. And it would have been way more boring if I went into this boss fight without any insights. If you encounter this boss fight without any insights, the enemies from the witches won't spawn, so the speedrunners will love this boss. It gives you all the space to hunt the witches then. You have to ignore the enemies itself when they spawn and trying to find the witches themselves so that you can deal damage to them. After hitting them for a while, they teleport away. And then you need to do it again, rinse and repeat. That is the whole fight. Nothing special, but you can speedrun this boss easily if you find them fast enough. Well, but if you struggle, things can drag for a pretty while. Number 19. Celestial Emissary. I don't know why, guys, but From Software really seems to have a thing for making these underwhelming fights where it is this regular enemies except one of them occupies a boss health bar. Dark Souls 2 has Royal Rat Vanguard and Dark Souls 3 has Deacon of the Deep, and we have Emissary and Bloodborne. The boss was very easy, and that was one thing I liked about it, honestly. It has a fight maybe of 2 to 3 minutes max. That is why, as well, I have these little boss guys higher than the Witches of Emwick, seriously. Number 18. Rom the Vacuous Spider. This boss is when the edible starts to kick in, honestly. I love the boss arena that Rom has. It is actually beautiful how the arena looks, and it is almost like you are in this dream state of mind if it comes to this boss. Now, this boss was sort of okay for me, but not to say I didn't like it, I did. You can decide if you want to kill the spiders first, but she will respawn them if you kill all of them. Or you can just dodge the spiders and rush in and kill Rom. I usually just left a couple of spiders left so that Rom don't respawn more of them. And it gave me some breathing room to get to Rom and just focus on her. Most of Rom's attacks are pretty well telegraphed, and all in all it feels like that the developers expect just the right amount of attention from the player. There are downsides about this fight, of course, and it is the absolute brutal damage Rom and her spiders do. Like, seriously, guys. They are fast, and there are so many of them. The ice meteors, like how I call them, of Rom will be a surprise attack for you if you are encountering her for the very first time. And you can't dodge or roll this attack. The best method is to run at a straight line. So keep that stamina up and you will be good. Number 17. Living Failures. I will say this. These guys are probably my favorite in the game below average fights. Obviously, when it comes to the DLC bosses, this is the very clear black sheep of the bunch. Almost every other boss in the game's DLC is top god tier, my guy. Whereas these guys are just sort of serviceable in my opinion. As a multiple boss fight, I got to say, it does a few things pretty good. I like how some of them choose to sit back and shoot projectiles at you while others get up in your face and try to hit you. As enemies, though, they aren't particularly special in any way, but I find it fun to parry a lot of their attacks. In Phase 2, of course, they also gained the ability to summon a shower of meteors from space, and this part, I must say, looks really neat, guys, really cool. However, nothing from the fight itself even compares to the best thing about the encounter, and that is obviously the music. It is so dramatic and stunning that a goofy boss like this has any right to slap this hard if it comes to the music. The downside can be a few too many of them grouped together at once, making it slightly overwhelming, but patience is your biggest advantage here. So staying patient with your attacks, they probably won't give you too much trouble. Number 16. Moon Presence. I would say I legitimately like this boss fight and find it enjoyable to fight, but Moon Presence is the one boss that kind of sits on a fine line where I would say I do like it, but it is not particularly great. Positives first. The design of this boss is peak. This thing embodies the idea of what I picture when someone says Eldrick's abomination. For real. It really looks so damn weird and unnatural. It really looks like the puppet master behind the Mantis Dream all along. Speaking of lore, this is probably the most impactful fight of Soulsborne. The only way to reach it is by taking the steps to make it to the secret ending. Certain steps, I would say. The boss music is generally good and it is some of the best haunting tracks in the game for me. If it comes to the fight itself, my favorite attack is when she instantly brings you down to 1 HP, and it is a unique moment, I can say, and it gives you the opportunity to get all your health back due to the Bloodborne's rally system, and it lines up so well with the lore of the fight. Well, this thing should have instantly kill you because it is one of the most powerful beings in the universe. With the downsides of this boss, it is just a simple boss for me and just too easy in my opinion. It just didn't felt like the final boss and the most powerful being in the Bloodborne universe. Yharnam, the last hunter, felt way more for me like the ultimate last boss fight for me in the game. Number 15. Murgo's Witness. This thing feels like the definition of a low B tier fight. I really enjoyed the brawl between me and the Witness. I really like how mysterious this boss is, and we all know about this creature that it protects Murgo's baby, and that is it. And this boss is also a crucial part in the lore of Bloodborne. There is enough variety in the movesets to keep me consistently entertained. I felt like a badass fighting her. I also think she looks really neat as a boss. What really set me off a little bit was the nightmare phase. Visually, it looks stunning, although she can appear out of thin air and attack you, and I wasn't a big fan on that. What you actually can do to counter this is you can just run in circles and you'll be actually be good. Number 14. Shadows of Yharnam. This was the Nazgul fight for me, and the first fight that has to put me on the edge of my seat definitely in my first run. But this fight is probably one of the most forgettable fights in the game for me. I still really like Shadows. I really don't have many negative things to say about this boss fight, despite there are not being any crazy or noteworthy features that make them stand out after having a ton of experience with from soft games. I found myself appreciating FromSoft's well-made gank bosses a lot more. Now this is my opinion. The two things that makes this boss works so well is the giant tombstone semi in the middle of the arena, and the three shadows all have a unique different fighting style. The tombstone is actually great to have in the arena because it helps you to split aggro between them. The one shadow is a melee fighter, other one mostly uses ranged fire attacks, and the other does both basically, but with less range on the projectile. In the second phase, where they become snake monsters or something, and gain a few extra moves like the stretch out sword swipe, then there is phase 3, which is my biggest problem with the fight. It does however make sense that the final standing shadow should gain some extra moves, but the move itself is just meh for me. It summons a bunch of giant snakes that all trying to hit you for a few seconds, and it just doesn't seem fair for me in a way. I always just felt like the candle shadow, just leave him for last and you'll be good. Number 13, Amygdala. Well, I know some players might think this boss is unworthy to be so low on the list, but Amygdala was really a stunning fight for me, don't get me wrong, and that the fight exists in my first playthrough also. I really love the fight itself. You can go for the most simplest strategy and hit the arms and it does some decent damage. Or you can just wait for its combos to finish so you can take those opportunities to smack its damn head and go for the big damage. The reason why Amygdala is sort of low on the list for me, it is because this boss fight was actually very easy for me. On my first run, I just stayed under her and smacked her legs and then the head. It was quite fast and a quick battle for me. This boss does have a nice replay value as well because of the different methods you can take with it. Number 12. Dark Beast Paul. One thing about Paul is that I always forget he exists. He is so hidden away in an area that is my least favorite in the game, by the way. Once you get to Jarl Ghul itself, his health is not that difficult to deplete. With this boss, you can actually need to get out of your way to have a good fight with him. Let's get to the positives first. If you face this thing early enough, he is a really good solid beast type boss in my opinion. He ride the fine line of being threatening while also not being too spammy to the point of redundancy, and it still feels really satisfying to keep up with him. I really do think this boss looks hella cool, guys. It is one of my favorite boss designs in the series, definitely. Unfortunately, he does have his downsides. I don't really like this big AoE attacks. I think it comes out of a little too fast for me. And sometimes it can be hard to get out from under him to escape it. Number 11. Blood-Starved Beast. Here's a classic and a memorable Bloodborne fight, and I will never forget this boss on my first run for real. I did really enjoy this boss fight. I certainly don't think he's like one of the best things coming out of the game. The most noteworthy thing about him is probably his design. Having those skin flaps turned inside out is pretty good and memorable detail. Aside from that, the actual fight is pretty good. The more you fight him, though, the easier he got for me, which is actually ironic because I found him to be quite a nuisance on my first playthrough. The thing with this boss that a lot of his moves are threatening when you get hit by him, especially the grab attacks, but once you know how to dodge him, you'll be pretty good. Number 10, the Cleric Beast. I absolutely love the Cleric Beast. I don't care what anyone says. I absolutely love this boss. It was my very first Soulsborne boss fight, guys, and I will never forget this beast of a boss. A lot would say that Father Gascoigne is the true tutorial boss, but I truly think that both the Cleric Beast and Gascoigne is the tutorial bosses. His design is really fitting as the first major encounter in the game. He is just mildly scary looking beast that pales in comparison to the horrors you'll encounter later on. And of course, the soundtrack. You guys think I'm not going to mentioning the soundtrack. The soundtrack is just top tier. Please let me know what you guys think of the soundtrack in the comment sections below. I really actually want to know it. But I will always love the Cleric Beast. Always. Number 9. Ebrietas, Daughter of the Cosmos. Undeniably one of the most interesting bosses for me ever, guys. Just by the fights with her, there is just so much things to appreciate about her, really. In order to fight her, you have to make your way to the upper cathedral ward in the Altar of Despair, which is the most creepiest area in the game for me. This boss has one of the most atmospheric introductions I have seen with the light beaming down on her. It's so ominous. She is also the most convincing looking cosmic beings I've ever seen as well. Also, also, I think that her movesets is pretty solid. She has a fair amount of different tentacle swipes along with her head slams, and I like her unique projectile attacks and the super neat space laser attacks as well. Now, some of you would wonder why isn't she higher? It is because of her charge attack, her stupid charge attack. This attack kind of is irritating for me, and that is why she is put though on all in all, she has my respect as the boss. Number 8. Martin Logarius. One of the most underrated boss in the game, yes, that is correct. Doesn't actually think he's quite top tier. It is still a really solid boss and fun fight for me. Logarius himself just comes off as such a badass, and I think his opening cutscene is really cool. I also like he has a few fights in the way the moveset goes through a dramatic shift between phases, and in phase 1 he is still busy trying to thaw out, so instead rushing you with melee attacks, he instead fall back and shoots you with some magic projectiles, which is pretty well made. Then he switch up. My favorite thing about the switch up is how surprisingly fast and mobile he becomes. He even starts flying around and dive towards you. I still find him fairly challenging till this day, really. Only main thing that throws me off is the different speeds of his attacks in phase 2. He still retains some of the move's slow and methodical swings as well. Number 7. Lawrence the First Vicar. Lawrence may just be the single-handedly most polarizing boss fight FromSoft has ever made. This boss has one of the most best and worst qualities of any in the game. Many people despise Lawrence because he is a reskin of the Cleric Beast. His moveset is debatably not well made. And then there are players that considers him one of the best for its lore and a memorable soundtrack. I'm on the side of liking him, so you guys can see that by now. But I do understand both sides of the argument. You actually need to space out your dodges a little bit more. And when it comes to phase 2, I genuinely liked it and enjoyed it. Losing half of his body and it becomes a really intense fight. and I also think he is one of the most intense boss fights FromSoft has ever made. Number 6, Father Gascoigne, the legend himself. If it comes to Father Gascoigne, I always find myself doubting him in comparison to the crazy goat hunters and insane, terrifying monsters that you encounter. He seems pretty overwhelming, but when I always find him, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I love this boss. What Gascoigne lacks in glorious spectacle, he is more than makes up for by just being a damn fun and well-paced battle for sure. He has unique and surprisingly phases, with his second phase being a crazy ruthless beast, will surprise any new player for sure. He also has a tragic backstory that just gives him just so much depth as a boss and as a character itself. I love Gascoigne and I will always. Number 5, Victor Amelia. My personal choice of the most underrated boss in the game itself. I usually don't see a lot of positive discussions around Amelia. Not a lot find her to be the most favorite, which I understand. But all in all, I really like this fight and it is really fun. She is probably the most fun and memorable for me. I do think she punishes the player a little bit too hard if they mess up. When you get good fighting her, dodging those incredibly dangerous attacks just feels so rewarding. And I really like that rewarding feel my Soulsborne players, and I know you do too. The big part that I like about her so much, I personally think she is the most scariest boss in the game. One of them. Her screams and screeches sound is absolutely horrifying and disturbing in itself. I also have said the word fuck so many times in a boss fight I can't even count. Number 4, Yharnam, the First Hunter. Yharnam felt like the real last boss fight for me, guys. I really love his character's lore and backstory, in that he has this very first hunter aura to him. I'll always consider him as a peak of the Bloodborne game. Firstly, the fact that the old man of the hunter's dream is in a wheelchair and is the final boss in the game was so poetic for me. It is a really memorable ending to a finale. If you want to fight him point blank, he has some attacks that are particularly hard to avoid, my fellow viewer. But parrying the moves with long wind ups is really satisfying, and his giant wind slice move is so damn neat cool. The fun thing about him is how he switches between two fighting styles when he uses the fully elongated bural blade. The main focus of this battle is mostly just knowing how to outspace his attack. Some of his attacks are particularly hard to avoid, remember that. While his movesets is really good as it is, I personally prefer when he switches to the shortened mode, where it becomes more of a fast-paced duel. I find it really fun to keep up with these quick swings in this mode, and dodging the gunshots feels great for me. It also looks really cool how he powers up himself by the moon presence in phase 2, causing him to get a new blue glow and become less prone to getting staggered. I also found it as one of the most satisfying victories in the game by far. Number 3, Lady Maria. I know that a lot of players think that she is overrated, but I always thought that she is so unique and it is such a beautiful dance of a fight. One playthrough leads to 6, and the more I played Bloodborne, the more I loved her. One of the main criticism on this boss is that it is too easy, and I completely agree with this. If you parry her, but if I wanted more out of this fight, I just don't parry her, just to give a challenge for myself, and she can get tough though. The main reason why I like her so much is the whole fight and setting itself. It is really memorable and beautiful at the same time, I must say, and of course, the lore that is behind this fight is so fascinating for me. She also feels like Bloodborne's ultimate human-type boss, and that is what it makes her so unique as well. She provides the most out of the game's combat. Number 2. Yes, it is extremely difficult to not include the ultimate amazing DLC's Golden Trio, guys. Orphan of Kos is also at the same time one of my most favorite bosses in all of Soulsborne games. It is still a peak boss fight. One of my all-time favorite thing about this boss is how he subverts your expectations for what a finale of a DLC should be like. Before Millennia, we had Orphan of Kos. He was the hardest boss challenge of its time before Elden Ring came on the scene. He is a myth and a legend. Despite being born seconds ago, it proceeds to run your ass to the ground. Even till this day, he can give me a fair amount of trouble for sure. What makes this boss fight so hard is the nature of how he uses his weapon. He can either swing the placenta at you like a normal hammer type weapon, or he can abuse the fact that it's connected to him by letting it fly around on the string, that it makes him so hard to predict and learn his movesets. But if you get used to his attacks, dodging his wild and frantic attacks is so much fun and badass. Then the phase 2, where he gets wings and is sort of able to fly now, plus his aggression is somehow even more ramped up. His combos last way longer. He can close distance like it's nothing, and you will get more placenta balls in phase 2, trust me. And then a lightning shockwave. Needless to say, he is ruthless, and he is dangerous, my guy, and I absolutely loved it. Number 1. Ludwig the Holy Blade. Can you really argue that Ludwig must not be at the top? This boss blew me away with just the soundtrack itself. I'm not yet talking about the fight. Everybody remembers this fight for its second phase, but I also think they forget just how good the first phase is as well. And he was legitimately scary, guys. I was afraid of this boss. I also think he is the best beast-type boss that From Software has ever made. He has an amazing moveset that works surprisingly well for his size. Something about the tells on his attacks are so easily recognizable, and it has a great flow to it. There are also very big powerful moves that have super well placed audio tells, like his loud screech before his charge attack, or the small grunt you can hear before he falls down on you. Ludwig, as a boss, will always be my king in Bloodborne, and the one boss that terrified me. Well, if you came this far in the video, I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your time. Please let me know in the comments which boss fight was the most memorable for you and which boss type was the most worst for you guys. And thank you so much for watching all my videos. Thank you for the support, and thank you for all the comments that you guys leave. I love to read through all of them. It brings me so much joy just to see other Soulsborne players just indulge in these games what From Software has gave us. And I'm planning on doing some Dark Souls um, boss ranking as well, and even Black Myth Wukong. So please leave a comment down below what you guys think. And once again, please leave a like and please subscribe. I really appreciate the subscription. It's for free and it will actually make my day completely. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I will see you in the next video.